chairperson, and then Mr. Seabury, would you please give a report?
Yes, sir. Ad hoc committee meeting on the Connecticut Film Festival. Chairman Mike Pellegrino called the meeting to order at 7 p.m. on November 9th, 2009. The attendance for committee members Gregg, Seabury, Assistant Corporation Counsel Robert Rivers, Chief of Staff Wayne Shepard, Director of Finance Dave St. Hilaire, ex officio members Ben Chianese, Jack Knapp, Joe Calvo, Cultural Commission Chairman Ben Silva, Jim Whitney of the Northwest Connecticut Convention and Visitors Bureau, Don Brothers, and City Center Director Andrew Gardner. Mr. Pellegrino asked Mr. Shepard to recap the previous committee meeting. Mr. Shepard said attendance at the film festival was up, and the economic impact in 2009 was $1 million, and over 2 years, economic impact was $1.67 million. 2 years ago, the city sponsored the event at $75,000, and last year at $65,000. They were asking for $65,000 in 2010. Mr. Whitney explained some of the data from the survey conducted during 2009 Connecticut Film Festival, which showed the attendance up and spending average at approximately $89 per person, even in the poor economy. Also, over 97% considered safe staying in the downtown area, and impressive statistics considered 61% of the respondents were from out of town. Mr. Seabury asked what the organizers were looking for and if they had other sources of funding. Mr. Carruthers requested $65,000 is looking into other sources, but they don't have a date set for next year. Mr. Chianese asked if we can afford this sponsorship given the money would come out of the contingency and we haven't reached winter yet. Mr. St. Hilaire replied that everything is spoken for in the budget and contingency is for surprises. Mr. Chianese said that the Connecticut Film Festival is a positive for the city, but thinks that there should be a partnership or matching program up to the predetermined dollar amount, and that $65,000 is too much. Being a for-profit doesn't allow other donors a tax break, which may be a deterrent. Mr. Knapp asked what percentage of the festival budget is the $65,000. Mr. Carruthers said about 1/3. He also got $50,000 from the Connecticut Commission on Culture and $50,000 from the General Assembly. Mr. Seabury moved to have the city fund the Connecticut Film Festival with $50,000, and if there's a need for additional funds, they can request it, but there's no guarantee of any additional funds. Second by Mr. Tiecholz, motion passed unanimously. Mr. Seabury moved to adjourn the meeting. Second by Mr. Tiecholz, the meeting is ended at 7:40. Respectfully committed, Mike Pellegrino, Chairman, Gregg, Seabury, and call the telephone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the report. I just want to put the record reflect that Mr. Pellegrino was the chairperson, but as we know, he's been very Mr. Seabury again. With that, I'll try your minds on Mr. Seabury's report. Any motion to accept the report? Mr. Powell?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to make a motion that we receive the committee's report and adopt its recommendation of funding $50,000 for this coming film festival year.
Motion made, seconded by Mr. Rotella. Discussion related to the film festival. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Your Honor, I'd like to recuse myself from the vote.
Okay, we'll ask that Elvis leaves the building. And I would directly reflect that Councilman Tonino has recused himself from participation in discussion. Okay, is there any discussion? Mr. Chianese.
Just going back to the report, my question can go to the date of the finance director. At the ad hoc meeting, you replied that everything in the budget is spoken for and the contingency is surprise. Has anything changed since that meeting? Or is that the budget is still spoken for and the contingency is a surprise?
Well, I didn't realize I said surprise, but the budget is very tight, and we do have about $25,000 in the economic development department that could be used for this, and that contingency, as you know, is used for items that may come up throughout the year that the council chooses to allocate funds towards. That's
I think the 25,000, Mr. Chianese, would come from the, do we have money in there, Mr. Shepherd, right, for the nutmeg games, which we're not doing this year? And the amount, the other 25,000 would come from the games.
And I'm going to put together an amendment to what's on the floor, because just to follow up on my comments at the ad hoc meeting, and to follow up on the mayor's comments as well, to make the motion that $25,000 be taken from the economic developer's budget, subject to a certification from the finance director, and that the second $25,000 come from the contingency fund, subject to the following: that the film festival at least applied for, not necessarily received, but at least applied for a 501c3 nonprofit status. And I was going for that on the second, and that will be able to get to this second.
There's been a motion on the floor to amend Mr. Calvin's motion. You have a point of order for this? Motion's been made here, not even a motion, but Mr. Calvin's going to need to accept it as a friendly amendment to his main motion, so it's not necessary for a second in that sense. The motion is, the amendment is okay with that. And the 25,000 will be taken from the Record of Economic Development's office, and then 25,000 from contingency. I just want to make sure the clerk gets this, and that the application for 501c3 contingent subject to an application for 501c3. So in order for Mr. Brothers to get the balance of that money, he would have to come in with a photocopy of his application. So it's something.
And I just want to follow up the reason why I think this week council, again, it's very good. It's one step is very positive for downtown. I'd like to do everything I can to make it successful. And I do believe the 503 application to be nonprofit is leading that way. And I think we've been asking for that for 3 years. And I think we have to at least put some timetable on to make sure this happens. I mean, I did offer my services to get it done, and I'm still unable to do that. But I think by having this a 501c3 does open the door to a lot more funding. And hopefully down the road it will take the city's responsibility a little less and make it more self-funding and be at least more accountable to at least the board of directors than what the PUC which is my reason for spending money.
Okay, so I'll make the record reflect that Mr. Chianese, you were going to donate your services, correct? So, read the minutes later on. Okay, that's something that you can talk with Mr. Phillips about. Any other discussion? Everybody understand the motion? Just nod your head if you don't. Okay, Mr. Rotella.
Thanks, Your Honor. We had a final ad hoc on the Fest several weeks ago. And while this may or may not be a proper time to broach the amendment, clearly the Film Fest ad hoc would have been a more opportune time to explore under the bridge. Before we start Connecticut Film Fest, I'd like to ask Mr. Carruthers, who happens to be here, and I know from personal conversations, is at this moment working on acquiring his 501c3. If he has a timetable that he thinks can satisfy the spirit of this amendment, I would hate to see us lose the film festival simply because you don't get your 501c3, which you are going to get, and I'm confident you're going to get in a timely enough manner to satisfy this amendment. So if I can, through the chair, I'd like to ask that question of Mr. Carruthers.
I think the amendment was that he just has to apply. He doesn't have to have it.
I think he's got to submit the paperwork. And in order for him to do that, he has to get some things filled up that I'm not sure he's going to be able to do. So that's my question.
We
So your question is, can he apply?
Can he make the...
Mr. Gross?
Paul there. Good evening. An answer to Mr. O'Tell's question. I've actually already met with Ben Chianese. It was probably about a month ago, but I was out of town 2 weeks right after we met. Then, of course, I worked on the big event for 2.5 weeks, the Hippolyte movie. So we started the process. We got together for 45 minutes or an hour, and I have the paperwork, and the process has started, and I intend on meeting back with him again sometime in the next couple of weeks. And I'll be applying for a nonprofit status for the festival.
Says yes?
Yes, I'm applying for nonprofit. I don't know when I will get, it usually takes a year to get the actual status, but I will be putting in the application form.
Actually, my experience has been once you filed to get a tax ID number, you're considered nonprofit even though your application's pending.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Mr. Perkins?
Thank you, Ron. To you, Mr. Groves. Do you feel that this amendment would adversely affect next year's film festival?
I'm sorry, what would it adversely affect?
Do you believe the amendment will adversely affect the film festival in any way, or are you okay with it?
No, because it's something that I want to do, and it's been put on the back burner during planning periods, but I actually had 3 lawyers over the course of the last year with good intentions who said they would set this up for the festival, and they all got busy and they didn't return calls or whatever, and it never came to fruition. So when you're in the throes of planning such a big event, your focus is on going after the lowest hanging fruit and getting sponsors together and making the event happen, which is what we did. So I do want this to happen on Sunday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Mr. Saddi?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a point of clarification, while the amendment, or the friendly amendment that Mr. Chianese made was accepted by the chair as the intent of the council voted on, the attached agreement beginning on 17-1 has specific language in it that doesn't incorporate that. Through the chair of the council, that would have to be changed. And I want to make sure, not saying I'm voting for this, but I want to make sure that at least the intent of both these council members who agreed on this is carried forward in the underlying documents. And so right now it reads, the next $25,000 will be provided to Mr. Brothers and Film Festival on March 1, 2010.
We can amend that clause in there to be more specific about it, but the amount of money provided is the same. It's just the source of the money is different. So if the council wishes and directs us, we can certainly amend the agreement that way. It may not be necessary because with the adoption of the motion, if it's adopted, that will be understood.
If I can continue through the chair, just to make sure that no one is confused, when you have an agreement or contract, looking at its 4 corners and it's signed, negotiated and signed by the parties, I'd be concerned of an issue of a trumping dialogue on the dais or the intent of the legislature, the legislative body, while the actual wording isn't there. So something like upon proof of submission of 501c3 to the IRS. I'm not dictating the language, I'm just throwing that out on the floor.
It is not a problem. We can, the agreement is before you as a proposed final. Not a problem amending that to be more specific about it. If the council feels comfortable about that, we will do that, and the final signed agreement will incorporate that language.
Thank you. That being said, just to make sure that was clear, I will not be voting for this funding, and I'll explain why. Earlier in this agenda, I asked the police chief what the $2,000 was going to be spent on, and he stated that on equipment and training, we have a spending freeze right now, and we know that there is a lot of that going on in the city as is necessary. We're also trying to get every tax dollar out of delinquents as we should. And there have been innovative programs doing that in order to get some funds into our coffers that are owed by the taxpayers. Well, I've sat up here and asked teachers and administrators to self-reflect as individuals and as a whole, and to give back dollars to the city, basically, foregoing raises and possibly and cutting back on other things. We have departments that have given back or flat funded, and to their credit, they've been doing a very good job under the circumstances. And it's not the city's fault that this economic situation has occurred. That being said, I looked at this initially a few years ago as seed money. I do not intend to create institutionalized funding of it. I do hope it's a success, but I will not be supporting this funding.
Mr. Saddi, any other discussion related to the... Mr.
I've been involved with a lot of this, and Councilman McCullough, may I have my notes on his notes? Thank you. He was kind enough to let me have his notes tonight. Matter of fact, I was in the elevator coming up here trying to make up my mind. And it occurs to me that no one thing contributes to the quality of life in the city. We can have the best plowed roads, but if our education falls apart, and that takes away from the quality of life. I believe we need to do things downtown. But I'm thinking this $50,000, where can we use that and get a bigger bang for the buck? I don't know yet. I know that we charge our mayor with spending the tax dollars wisely. It's a tough job, because I've seen that budget, and I don't know how he figures out where to put the money.
Sometimes I don't know how you...
Well,
flip a coin.
I gotta tell you, I admire your work. That being said, I went through this document and spent a few hours on this. I've never been an A student, so it took me a while. But I've seen a number of comments in here about how people found it confusing, they didn't feel it was well advertised. I tried to do some of my own equations using the numbers in here to find out if more people knew what would the percentage be, how much more, how many more people would be brought into the center. Because that is a concern. And I think this is one part of making downtown Danbury a revitalized place. Somehow, and I don't know where the answer is, I would like to see a plan somewhat better than what I've seen here. And I mean that very respectfully. That's going to show more attendance, bringing more people down to this festival. And addressing specifically, there's 264 responses, I think. There's probably 8 of them that have really good directional comments. I would love to just sit down with somebody. I'm not the guy to do this, but I would just love to sit down with somebody and hear what that plan is. Because for me to sit here and say, okay, there's $50,000, listening to Councilman Saddi with this comments about the chief. I see that $50,000 going someplace else. Not all of it being pulled out of downtown, because again, I'd like to see that money being used to go back downtown to some degree. So that's why I've been on the fence for a long time on this issue. So, in closing, let me say this. I wish people could convince me to say yes, because I really would like to see this as more of a specific thing as opposed to decorating Danbury at Christmas time. Carolyn, the city center with all of the bands and music, those kinds of things. I see those as being a much more broad thing to impact the quality of life in Danbury than I do this. And that could just be my cultural deficit. I don't know. So let me leave that with you, and if at some point you care to call me and talk to me about what the plans are to make it bigger event, or if you want to do that now, great, but I'm not putting you on the spot here, I'm just sort of telling you where I stand.
Is it all right? Well, I'm going to allow you to just respond briefly to that, and then Mr. Perkins has a comment.
Well, as with any, excuse me, major event, especially one like this that had 320 events over 6 days and nights, you're always going to have some growing pains. There's always going to be a handful of people that write and say something was wrong. Actually, the town was very well marked. There were sandwich boards all over the place telling you how to get around town. And, it's possible that somebody went astray. And, with that many people, there was, the official count was over 6,500 based on the survey that the Convention and Visitors Bureau did. So that was a 50% increase in attendance from the previous year. If we were to get a 50% increase again, we'd be getting close to 10,000 people. And with some of the plans that we have in place for 2010, starting to widen the marketing of it as a little bit more of a fringe festival, like bringing the Connecticut Student Film Festival into the fold, and the New England Television and Film Exposition into the fold, and different production companies into the fringe. We create more critical mass, and there's a lot of cross-promotional opportunities. A lot of the funding that came in last year, there was a couple of questions about marketing. We generated around $350,000 in media coverage on that event. That was before we even started spending any money on ads. But a lot of money that we spent on ads didn't come in until between 4 and 6 weeks before the festival, because the state agencies had had the cash flow holding back for so long and finally gave us the check. So cash flow was a real issue in the last year. And then, I mentioned the attendance. There was, as far as a bigger bang for the buck, I can't speak to all the issues that a town has to run with, but I can tell you that our total economic impact, based on the study that Convention and Visitors Bureau did, was $1,059,530. Now, the total economic benefit to the town, we leveraged $95,000 more in cash sponsorships and grants, and more than $100,000 in in-kind sponsorships. Volunteer hours totaled $273,851, and that's based on the Connecticut volunteer hourly rate by the Bureau of Labor Statistics in 2006 for $25.75 per hour. And $317,889 in traditional media value, which is just television, radio, and print. So we haven't even put a value on all the non-traditional media and coverage that we got on the internet and community sites and that sort of thing, which goes way beyond that. So I hope that addresses some of the questions. So the total value of all this was $1,746,370, and that comes out of the $65,000.
Thank you. Mr. Perkins, you have a comment.
Thank you, Your Honor. Through you, actually, to you, just for a point of order, are we discussing the merits of the amendment or what?
The amendment was accepted as a friendly amendment, so there's no vote is required. So we're on the main motion to fund the festival.
Okay. I'd like to make a comment.
Sure, go ahead.
I spoke in favor of the film festival a few different occasions, and I'm here tonight to speak in favor of it again also. We talked about the decelerating contributions that we've been making to the Connecticut Film Festival already. I mean, it went from like 75,000 down to 65, down to 50. The trend is going down, and I believe that some of the original dialogue was to, like Councilman Saddi said, is not to have this thing become part of our budget, and that's happening now. As far as the impact that this festival has had on the city, I think it's leading us to the direction that we want to go in as far as branding for the city of Danbury. I mean, it's a very important component of what we're trying to do here in this town. Making sure that we have quality of life issues that people can enjoy, and the film festival is certainly one of them. I think I talked to Mr. Shepherd a little bit earlier, and we're in the process of getting that professional bike race back down to downtown Danbury. There's nothing more exciting than to see guys going 40 miles an hour, inches apart from each other downtown. And that's going to happen. We had it before. It puts us back on the national calendar. Okay, it's all part of our branding. And I think we're missing a grand opportunity not to get behind this film festival and other types of events that boost our downtown area. One thing we need to understand also is that the people up here, we're change agents. This is the type of stuff that we need to get behind in order to move the city forward. So I hope that you all will support this event. I hope you also will support other types of events like this. Thank you.
Mr. Perkins, I'm going to move down this side of the dais to Mr. Gallo, and then we're going on to Mr. Red and Stanley.
Thank you, Your Honor. I couldn't agree more with Mr. Perkins and his belief on this. When we took this up 2 years ago, we talked about it being a 3-year commitment for the city. And at the time, and presently, I have viewed this as an investment in Danbury. I've always viewed this as something that if it could take off on its own, and that was why we sort of talked about a 3-year commitment when we first did this, was to, the idea was to bring people into Danbury, have people use our services, have people go to our restaurants, go to our hotels, buy products. People employed in those stores, people employed in those hotels, people employed in those restaurants, pay taxes. And that's the investment. This is an investment towards our future, and our $50,000 investment at this point in 5 years may yield us a tremendous amount of tax revenue from this process and from the film festival being here in Danbury. And I just need to encourage my fellow council people that we should be supporting this. Even in this economic time, we still have to invest. We just don't stop investing because times are going a little bit on the green side. You know, look at the report from the executive summary. 45.8 respondents were from outside of Danbury. And 15.5% were from out of state. That's a big number. And it keeps growing, and it keeps growing at the rate that it is. It has a 50%, as Mr. Brother says, improvement in things this year. It's going in a positive direction. And it's leading people into Danbury. People will be spending in Danbury. People will be employed in Danbury because of that spending. And that just comes back to us in revenue. So I just would encourage you all to think about this and think about supporting this as an investment in the future, not just an expense right now of $50,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gallo. Ms. Stanley, she's going to go first.
Thank you, Mr. Brothers. As you can see, Danbury has committed. We have funded for the last 2 years and are looking to fund you with another $50,000. And I think that downtown Tiecholz Film Festival has been a great experience for all to enjoy. But as you can see, we have committed. I just want you to let me know that you are committed. The funding, we committed for 3 years, okay? I just want to make sure that next year, if the funding is not available, you're not going to pack up and leave. I want to make sure that you're committed to Danbury as Danbury has been committed to your organization.
No, most of the people who know me, I'm absolutely committed. I like challenges, and this is a challenge making this event happen in Danbury and making it happen. You know, I think I even told the group before, I want this to be a legacy of mine that I leave behind in the community. So it's very difficult to make something like this happen and make it a national and international event, not just a pretty event that happens in Connecticut. So I'm committed to making it happen and going after the necessary funding to keep it going for years to come.
Okay, just to follow up, you are committed, I can see you're telling me that, but if next year there is no funding from the city of Danbury, will you be able to, are you sure that you'll have funding in place to keep it going right here in Danbury and not be even Boise Falls?
I'm going to do everything I can to keep it going in Danbury and get funding. I can't make any guarantees that I'm going to have all the funding necessary, and I might have to scale back, or maybe it will be bigger than ever. It really depends on the economy, depends on how many sponsors I get. But I don't make any money if I don't get any sponsors. You know? So this festival the festival is designed with low ticket prices, so anybody can afford to go to it. The events that we've created for this festival, some of the events that we charge $7 for, you have to pay $35 to $75 in New York City to go. Same caliber of people. So, I mean, right now, this is strictly a labor of love.
So are you saying that if you can't make money, then you do? We don't have the funding for next year? I just want to make sure that you're as committed as Danbury has been.
No, I'm absolutely committed. I said it numerous times. I've said it in the press. You can't start something like this just over somewhere else. There's so many elements that get involved. And last week I had a meeting with 10 hotels, salespeople, some of them general managers, to build a whole marketing program with the internal marketing programs of the hotels like Hilton Honors and Holiday Inn Priority Club, things like that. I mean, this is just one little element of the whole festival, is setting up comp rooms and setting up marketing programs so that they can sell more hotel rooms. Because one of the biggest elements of this event, or benefits, is to put heads in beds, fill all the hotel rooms, so that if you want to come to this event, it's like going to South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, you can't get a room unless you're 50 miles away, because the event is so big and popular. So last year, what I was telling people about is at Austin South by Southwest Festival attracts 125,000 people a year, or 125,000 visits over 10 days. That's pretty hefty, and we don't even have the room for that in Danbury, but I'd love nothing more than grab 20 or 25 or 30% of that and fill every bed in Danbury. So there's a lot of work involved, and you just don't walk away from all the relationships that have been built. Plus, everybody knows where I live. I can't walk away.
Thank you, Mrs. Stanley.
Thank you,
Mr.
Supervisor. I too agree with Councilwoman Stanley, because this is a very important endeavor for the city of Denver. Funding in the last 3 years has dropped from $75,000 to this year, and I stipulate again for this year, hopefully we'll turn the worm around, so to speak, that next year things will be better, and maybe there will be no funding whatsoever. But with that being said, one has to think about the monies that this has generated in terms of, as you mentioned, in terms of tax dollars. Most importantly, you have to think about the people that are willing to attend. I mean, it all comes down to part of the revitalizing of the center of Danbury. So we're going to have to bite the bullet this year, and I think that the taxpayers of Danbury are willing to do that, but they expect it to stop fairly soon, hopefully this year. I agree that you spend a little bit, and hopefully you get back a lot. Well, I hope next year we spend nothing and get back more. Thank you.
Comment on that.
Well said, Mr. Riley.
I'm very sensitive to what this city has done. This is unprecedented in the city, in the state of Connecticut. I mean, this is very progressive what Danbury has done with funding this festival in the last 2 years. The other cities are not doing this. We've got a combination of funds from the state, from corporations, and from the city. The money from the city and the 2 state grants we got last year were all applied to production of the event and also to marketing the event. And the other sponsorships, which weren't huge, but there was a certain amount of sponsorships, and then that was starting to be applied to salaries. So, and in this economy, everybody's salary is suffering. So I'm very sensitive to what the city's done, and I'm very honored by the fact that the city has done it in the past. It really means a lot to me from a professional standpoint.
That's why we're number 9.
Thank you. Further discussion, Mr. Visconti.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Crow, you stated
that you're committed to the city of Danbury. Have you done this in other towns in the state of Connecticut?
Well, I think I've made the council aware in the past that this is a roaming festival, and one of the reasons it's a roaming festival, we do 1 day, 2 day, 3 day events throughout the course of the year. In 2008, 2009, we did 33 days and nights around the state, and that's part of our marketing program. But while we do these events, we're constantly pointing back to our main event in Danbury. So it's a way of ramping up each year. And with each one of those events, we do a lot of television interviews, radio interviews, and things like that, and we pitch the whole festival about what's going to be happening, not only in that weekend, but also in Danbury. So that is, to answer your question, we do it in other places, but it's not the main event with 320 events like we had this last June. It might be 30 or 40 short and full-length films over the course of a Friday through a Sunday.
You answered it in a roundabout way, but that's okay. Thank you, Mr. Brothers. I feel that this is a good thing for the city, but I really have a problem asking the taxpayers to spend $50,000 for something of this nature, even though it may or may not be benefiting downtown Danbury in the long run. We've had teachers' layoffs, we've had concessions by police and fire unions, all kinds of things going down the pike this last budget. God only knows what's ahead of us the next budget year. So I just have a real problem spending another $50,000 of the taxpayers' money when we're looking at all kinds of problems. Thank you.
Mr. Visconti, any further discussion? Ms. Tiecholz.
Thank you, Your Honor. I've also had my doubts whether I thought it was a good idea to put the money into the film festival this year with the economy the way it is. But I'm thinking of something Councilman Arconti had said one night about we need to invest in our small business owners. And in my opinion, in a roundabout way, this is investing in our businesses on Main Street because we're bringing them business and keeping them alive. So I will be supporting this.
Thank you, Ms. Tiecholz. Any further discussion related to the festival? Seeing none, then I think we're ready to vote on this. A yes vote means that we will fund the festival $25,000 from the economic development budget, and then $25,000 from contingency, with the caveat that the funding can only occur if the 501c3 has been applied. And we're going to ask Mr. Brothers to provide indication of that. And we'll ask Mr. Brothers to provide the application to Mr. St. Hilaire before Mr. St. Hilaire cuts the check to be consistent. Mr. Calvo has requested a roll call vote. So for the new members, the clerk will call your name and aye or nay. This position. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Arcanti.
Yes.
Curran.
Yes.
DiPierici.
Aye.
Riley.
Yes.
Seabury.
Yes.
Stanley.
Yes.
Taylor.
Aye.
Cola.
Yes.
Negreshat.
Yes.
Hallis.
Yes.
Cabo.
Aye.
Saddi.
Nay.
Visconti. Trombetta.
Yes.
Knapp.
Yes.
Nero.
Nay.
Perkins.
Yes.
Chianese.
Yes.
Botello.
Yes.
Tiecholz.
Yes.
Reno.
Okay, that'd be 17 yeses and 3 noes. Motion passes.